Welcome back to this video series on writing a Sudoku solver in Java. In this video, we will be implementing two of the helper methods for our solve Sudoku class, Sudoku solver class. We'll be writing containsInRow and containsInCol. So first off, let's just go back and look at what the code says we need to do. So if we look at containsInRow, it says it returns true if the indicated row contains the indicated number. So before I write any code for this, I'm going to write, in my tester here, I'm going to write a couple of tests. I'm going to comment this out for now. Control /, by the way, comments. And I want to write a test where I know that the output's going to be true. I want to write one where I know the output's going to be false, right? And so if I say solver.containsInRow, now, if I look at my rows here, rows are horizontal, right, side to side. If I look at like row 0, 1, 2, 3, row 3 definitely contains a 9. I'm going to say row 3 contains a 9. All right. Now, I need this to, remember, containsInRow is returning a value. I want it to print out, so I'm going to do a system.out.println. Right. And that I'm expecting to print true when this is working. Okay. I'm going to do one that's false as well, just because, I mean, telling it to return true would make it return true. So I'm going to pick one that's false. So in row 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, row 6 does not contain a 1. So row 6, 1 should be false. All right. So now if I compile this and I run my tester, I'm getting false, false. So right now I know that it's not working. Okay. So let's go ahead and take a look at our code. Now, actually, before we look at the code, let's think about how we're going to do this. So we want to check if a given number is in this row. All right, so the idea is we want to go one thing at a time and see if it happens to equal the number we're looking for. So to go one thing at a time, we'll use a for loop. All right, so I'm going to say for int I equals 0, I less than. Now, how many things are in the row? Well, that would be the length of the row. So we get to the row by going to board at index row and getting its length. And now we can say, well, if the thing in row at index I is equal to the number, right, then that means that it was contained in that row, so we can return true. Now, if it's not equal to that number, I don't want to immediately return false, because that will mean that it'll check the very first value and then immediately return false. And so I want to make sure that my for loop finishes, so my curly brace here, before I return false. All right, so I'm going to save that. I'm going to compile. Notice I'm using the up arrow on my keyboard to go to the previous command. So I go up to Java Sudoku tester, and so now if this works correctly, I should see true false. And we do see true false. And so this, at least at first glance, appears to be working correctly. And so now I'm going to do the same thing, but we want to write our containsInCol method. Now recall that containsInCol is the same idea, except it's going to check a column to see if it contains a value. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to write a test here that I know is true. I'm going to write one that I know is false. So column 0, 1, 2, 3 also contains a 9, so that should still be true. And containsInCol 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 also does not contain a 1, so that should still be false. Okay, I'm going to compile this and run it because, remember, I haven't actually written this, so I'm expecting false, false. I do that because that way I'm sure that I'm actually testing the right method. Now I'm going to go back to my solver, and I guess before I go to the solver, let's reason through how we're going to do this. So in the same way we went through each element in the row, we want to go through each element in the column. All right, so we're going to go through each row one at a time. So again, we'll use a for loop, but this time instead of going by column and iterating, we'll go by row. So I'm going to use another for loop for int I equals 0, I less than. Now how many rows are there? Well, that's the length of our board. So board.length plus plus. So now I'm going to say if board at row I column call is equal to number, then we'll return true. And just like last time, I don't want to return false too early. I want to make sure I return false after the loop because I want it to get a chance to go through all of the rows before it returns false. And so I'm going to compile, and we will run, and we get true false, which is what's expected. And so there we go. We have 2 of our methods implemented. We have our containsInRow and our containsInCol implemented. 2 steps closer to being done. So that's it for this video. You might start thinking about how you're going to handle our containsInBox method. That'll be the next discussion. So until next time, make sure you like and subscribe.